There is no national electrical code requirement specifying that Cat5 cable must be secured every 4.5 feet in attics of single-family dwellings. The inspector's reference to 4.5-foot rule is not a standard requirement found in commonly used electrical codes. It's crucial to differentiate between national codes like the National Electrical Code, often abbreviated as NEC, and local ordinances or regulations. The NEC is a widely adopted standard for safe electrical installations, but it's not federal law in itself. It's a model code that states and local jurisdictions can adopt, modify, or reject. Local jurisdictions such as cities, counties, or even specific utility districts often have the authority to create their own electrical codes or amend the NEC to suit their specific needs and concerns. These local codes can be more stringent than the NEC and may address specific situations or issues prevalent in their area. Therefore, the 4.5-foot securing requirement could potentially stem from a local code or ordinance specific to that area in Florida where the inspection took place. It is important to verify local requirements, as they can sometimes differ between jurisdictions. When an inspector cites a rule that seems unfamiliar or unsupported by the NEC, it is important to ask for the specific code section or ordinance they are referencing. This will allow you to research the regulation yourself and understand its context and applicability. To clarify the situation and identify the origin of the 4.5-foot rule, you should firstly contact the local building department or electrical inspection authority. They can provide information on local electrical codes and ordinances that are in effect. Secondly, review the local codes and ordinances online, if available, or request a copy from the building department. Look for sections that address the securing of communication cables, such as Cat5, in attics. Thirdly, discuss the issue with the inspector and politely request a written explanation of the code reference. This will help to ensure that you both are on the same page and that the requirement is clearly understood. Cable securing requirements are generally put in place for several reasons. One primary reason is to prevent strain on connections. When cables are left unsecured, they can sag or move, placing stress on the points where they are connected to devices or junction boxes. This strain can lead to loose connections, intermittent signal problems, or even complete connection failures over time. Another reason for securing cables is to prevent damage. In attics and other areas where cables might be exposed to physical contact, securing them helps to protect them from being snagged, crushed, or otherwise damaged by people, animals, or objects moving through the space. Damaged cables can pose safety hazards such as electrical shorts or fire risks, and can also disrupt communication services. Furthermore, proper cable management contributes to a safer and more organized installation. Bundled and secured cables are less likely to become entangled or create trip hazards. This is particularly important in areas where maintenance or repair work is likely to be performed. The National Electrical Code addresses the securing and support of cables in various sections, but these sections generally do not specify distances as short as 4.5 feet for communication cables in dwellings. The NEC does have requirements for securing and supporting electrical cables such as non-metallic sheath cable, often referred to as Romex, and metallic cables, like armored cable or conduit, but these requirements are typically different from those that might apply to communication cables. For example, NEC Section 334.30 covers the securing and supporting of non-metallic sheath cable. It generally requires that non-metallic sheathed cable be secured within 12 inches of boxes, cabinets, fittings, and other cable terminations, and at intervals not exceeding 4.5 feet along the length of the run. However, this section applies specifically to electrical power and lighting circuits, not to low-voltage communication circuits like Cat5. Similarly, NEC Section 392.30 provides requirements for cable trays, which are often used to support and route large numbers of cables in commercial and industrial settings. This section specifies the spacing between supports for cable trays, but it does not directly address the securing of individual Cat5 cables within a dwelling. With regard to low-voltage cables such as Cat5, NEC Article 725 addresses Class 1, Class 2, and Class 3 remote control, signaling, and power-limited circuits. This article provides general requirements for the installation of these circuits, but it does not typically include specific requirements for securing distances. Instead, it focuses on issues such as overcurrent protection, wiring methods, and separation from power circuits. Because Cat5 cable is typically used for low-voltage communication and data transmission, it falls under the general guidelines for low-voltage wiring, which may not include the stringent securing requirements that apply to power circuits. The absence of specific 4.5-foot securing requirement in the NEC for Cat5 cable in dwellings suggests that the inspector is likely referring to a local code or standard. Therefore, verifying the local regulations is essential to understanding and complying with the applicable requirements. In the absence of a specific code requirement, best practices for cable installation should be followed. These practices include supporting the cable at reasonable intervals to prevent sagging and strain, protecting the cable from physical damage, and maintaining a neat and organized appearance. While a 4.5-foot securing interval might not be mandatory, it could still be considered a reasonable practice in some situations depending on the specific characteristics of the installation. For example, in areas where the cable is exposed to potential physical damage or where there is a risk of it being snagged or pulled, more frequent securing might be warranted. Similarly, if the cable run is particularly long or has significant elevation changes, additional support might be necessary to prevent sagging. Ultimately, the goal of cable securing is to ensure a safe, reliable, and long-lasting installation. Even if a specific securing distance is not mandated by code, it is always prudent to follow industry best practices and to consider the specific needs of the installation when determining the appropriate securing method and interval. If the inspector insists on the 4.5-foot rule, politely request that they provide the specific code or ordinance that supports their requirement. If the inspector cannot provide such documentation, or if the documentation does not clearly apply to Cat5 cable in dwellings, you may want to consult with a qualified electrical contractor or other expert to discuss the situation and determine the best course of action. Keep in mind that inspectors have the authority to enforce the codes and regulations that are in effect in their jurisdiction, but they also have a responsibility to ensure that those codes are applied fairly and consistently. By understanding the relevant codes and by communicating effectively with the inspector, you can help to ensure that your cable installation meets all applicable requirements and that it is safe and reliable. While national codes like the NEC provide a baseline for electrical safety, local jurisdictions often have the authority to amend or supplement these codes to address specific local conditions or concerns. These local amendments can sometimes include more stringent requirements than those found in the NEC. For example, a local jurisdiction might require that all electrical work be inspected by a licensed electrician, even if the NEC would allow a homeowner to perform the work themselves. Similarly, a local jurisdiction might impose stricter requirements for the granting and bonding of electrical systems, or for the use of certain types of wiring methods. These local amendments are typically adopted through a formal legislative process, and they are often published in a separate document or supplement to the NEC. It is important to be aware of any local amendments that are in effect in your area, as these amendments will supersede the requirements of the NEC. To find out if there are any local amendments to the NEC in your area, you can contact your local building department or electrical inspection authority. You can also check the website of your state or local government, as many jurisdictions now publish their codes and ordinances online. In addition to local amendments to the NEC, there may also be other local ordinances or regulations that affect electrical work. For example, a local ordinance might require that all electrical work be permitted before it is started, or that all electrical contractors be licensed by the city or county. These local ordinances are typically adopted by the City Council or County Commission, and they are often published in a separate document or supplement to the local codes. To find out if there are any local ordinances that affect electrical work in your area, you can contact your local building department or city hall. You can also check the website of your city or county government, as many jurisdictions now publish their codes and ordinances online. When performing electrical work, it is important to be aware of all applicable codes, ordinances, and regulations, both national and local. Failure to comply with these requirements can result in fines, penalties, and even the shutdown of your project. Therefore, it is always a good idea to consult with a qualified electrical contractor or other expert before starting any electrical work to ensure that you are in compliance with all applicable requirements. The absence of a specific 4.5-foot securing requirement in the NEC for Cat5 cable in dwellings emphasizes the importance of verifying local regulations. In the specific location of Florida, it is important to determine what the local requirements are, as well as the requirements for single-family dwellings. Always check with your local inspector before doing any electrical work to ensure that it is up to code. Inspectors have the final say on what is allowed and required in their jurisdiction.